Let's begin with the first verse, Lamentations chapter 2, Eicha bet, and it reads, How Yahweh in his displeasure has covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud. He has cast down from the heavens to the earth the comeliness of Israel. This is very interesting, this right here, for many reasons, but we'll see a couple. In Isaiah 14, there's a verse that is very known and that it connects with this that was just said right here in an interesting way. And we'll see why in just a moment. So in Isaiah 14, when it speaks about the falling of Halel, known as Lucifer, how you have fallen from the heavens, O Halel, son of the morning. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the nations. He has cast down from the heavens to the earth the comeliness of Israel. So the beauty of Israel fell from the heavens, was not only fell, but was cast down. Just like Lucifer, known as Halel, in fact, was the most beautiful malach, therefore the beauty in the heavens, but it fell from it because he was cast down. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens, let me raise my throne above the stars of El, and let me sit in the mount of the appointment on the sides of the north. If we go to Ezekiel 28, that has to do as well with the falling of Satan. It says, you were in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering. Every precious stone was your covering. Then further ahead, you were the anointed cherub, or well, there are several ways people pronounce it, but it's a cherub, a type of malach. So you were the anointed cherub that covered, and I placed you. You were on the set apart mountain of Elohim. You walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. It says here, you profane your set apart places by your many crookedness, by the unrighteousness of your trading. Therefore, I brought forth fire from your midst. It has devoured you, and I turned you to ashes upon the earth before the eyes of all who see you. There's something else I wanted to read from here. We have this as well. By the greatness of your trade, you became. Look how it mentions the greatness of its trade, just like it references this when it comes to the great whore of Babylon. And we saw a connection with the first chapter that we read in Lamentations, talking about Jerusalem, pretty much how it fell because of the influence of that same spirit of the great whore of Babylon. For there are several things that were said. You can watch the study that we did last week, where I mentioned why, well, who would be the great whore, according to the book of Revelations and the letter of Peter. But here, just like pretty much we made a connection between what was being said to Jerusalem and how that negativity is because of the spirit of the great whore, which influenced Israel into worshiping idols. Now we have here how Jerusalem is being compared to the beauty that Lucifer had. And since Jerusalem fell in the trap of the enemy and ended up worshiping Halel, just like Halel fell because he deceived Eve and then Israel, so did Jerusalem fall because of that deception of Halel. So by the greatness of your trade, so we see another connection. In this case, it is talking about Lucifer, who makes merchandise of the faith pretty much by making the false doctrines and all of that. But this is mentioned when it comes to the great whore in the book of Revelation. You became filled with the violence within and you sinned. So I thrust I thrust you from the mountain of Elohim, and I destroyed you. Once again, he was thrown away, O covering cherub from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your loveliness. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. You corrupted your wisdom. So he was given a type of positive wisdom, but he corrupted it through, well, as it says here, for the sake of your splendor, he became vain and basically separated the wisdom that he had received from the truth, which is Mashiach. And that's why he pretty much brought forth all the doctrines of demons, false doctrines that are based on the wisdom of the world, which is evil wisdom, that spirit which fills the great whore of Babylon. So your heart was lifted up because of your loveliness. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. And I threw you to the earth. I laid you before sovereigns to look at you. The point is, Lucifer was given the best job ever in the second heaven to be the representation of the Most High, and that's why he was so beautiful. But that beauty made him become vain. So he wanted all the worship for himself. So that's why he fell. But he fell not only because he wanted the worship of humans, but because he got it. He made everybody follow him instead of the Most High through many different ways. Doctrines of demons, the interpretation of the letter, pretty much. Because it is like that wisdom that was just mentioned, corrupted wisdom. Like I always mentioned regarding Judaism, how I use a lot of the wisdom that they teach in Judaism, yet they don't understand it, sadly. And I don't say that in any negative way that some may perceive it. I mean it in the sense that since they don't have Yahushua, who is the truth, they don't really understand the wisdom that they hold in many of the books. Because they don't accept Mashiach, their wisdom becomes empty, evil wisdom, corrupted. Because wisdom without truth is, like I just said, evil wisdom. So the enemy has created all those false doctrines, idols, etc., so that he may receive the worship instead of the Most High. And since he was the representation in the heavens, he was above the 70 angels that represented or were above the 70 nations, and above Michael, who was connected to Israel as a nation, as we see in many parts of scripture, Daniel 12:1, for instance. And then as Lucifer was cast down, and we see in Ezekiel and Isaiah, we just read it, he loses that power that he had over Israel, and obviously every person that accepts Mashiach from any nation, but mainly Israel, which is the representation of the people, or well, Israel is the people of Yahweh, the nation of Yahweh. But I say representation because the flesh is just a representation of the Ruach. And that's why only through Yahushua can we become true Yahudim, even if we are genetically descendants from Yaakov. So, how Yahweh in his displeasure has covered the daughter of Sion with a cloud. He has cast down from the heavens to the earth the comeliness of Israel. Because Satan, who was in charge, was thrown to the earth. And therefore the power that Jerusalem held also came down with it. And has not remembered his footstool in the day of his displeasure. What is the footstool of Yahweh? The earth, right? So if we go to Psalms 110, Yahweh says, well, here is David speaking. Yahweh said to my Adoni, sit at my right hand, which is what Yahushua, our sovereign, did after he resurrected, Yahweh said to my sovereign, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. And we know the heavens are his throne and the earth his footstool. So Yahweh was saying, sit at my right hand in the heavens until I go down again as the last and make your enemies fall, as in Revelation 12, when Satan and a third of the angels fall to the earth, which is the footstool of his feet. So now we are seeing another reference to that. And has not remembered his footstool in the day of his displeasure. Because of his displeasure, he will destroy the earth. So that will be as not remembering, as in the sense of not caring. Yahweh has swallowed up without compassion all the pastures of Jacob. This type of verses many times are part of what makes people think, or well, either think that as they say, God of the Old Testament is one and that of the New Testament is another one. Because they cannot see the relation between one and the other, because they don't understand the connection between justice and mercy. They think is one or the other, and are not able to come to a balanced judgment in which there is mercy according to the favor of Yahweh, of course, but there is also justice, which will destroy the enemy who doesn't accept truth, pretty much, as we see in Thessalonians, because they did not have love for the truth. Yahweh will send the lie so that they believe it, because that's what they wanted. If they rejected the truth, it's because they want the lie. So they are about to see what the lie will bring: destruction. And that's why there won't be any compassion, because when he offered compassion through Mashiach, they had no compassion, those who rejected Mashiach. So now only those who accepted Mashiach will receive compassion, while the rest of the world will not see any, because the mercy has to come to an end if there is true judgment. And that is why the door of mercy will close with the death of the two witnesses. And there won't be any way to receive salvation after that, only justification through death. So it is important to understand that even though Yahweh is patient and long suffering, as scripture says, that doesn't mean forever suffering. There will be a moment when he will stop and bring judgment. The evil, the wicked think that Yahweh won't judge ever, and they are very wrong. And that's why these verses are written. These verses are not written for those who love, for those who are true, for those who fulfill his commandments. They are written for those who will be destroyed because of their actions, because it is what they deserve in every way, in every sense. We may deserve punishment, but because we repented, Yahweh helps us to change in order for us to be better and not be part of the destruction. So Yahweh has swallowed up without compassion all the pastures of Jacob. Look how it says Jacob, it doesn't say Israel, as it said here, for instance. Here he was talking about the beauty, and he was talking about the heavens. Here it is talking about not receiving compassion, being swallowed up. So Jacob. My point is, Israel references honor, that which is high, and Jacob, that which is low, earthly. So that's why Israel, normally when we see those two names, Israel connects to the few and Jacob to the many. In his wrath, he has thrown down the strongholds of the daughter of Yehudah. He has brought them down to the ground. He has profaned the reign and its rulers. In his wrath. So like I said, Mashiach came to bring mercy and they decided to kill him. And the fact that he has waited 2,000 years for everybody to repent and go back to him makes the wicked think that he won't judge and that he has no power because he can't be killed. According to them, they would be able to kill him again if he came, which Yahweh will allow because he said that if they hit you on one side, you put the other. So the fact that the face is a mirror, the right of the left, reason why in Hebrew the word is panim, so it's plural for face, is like first and last. He came and they hit him on one side. Now he's coming and he's gonna allow them to kill him again. And now they will have no excuse, neither Yahudim nor Gentiles. So in his wrath, he has thrown down the strongholds of the daughter of Yahudah. He has brought them down to the ground. He has profaned the reign and its rulers. In the heat of displeasure, he has cut off every horn of Israel. A horn is pretty much the crown of the animal. So it represents a leader, a horn. And that's why I just mentioned the reign and its rulers. Now it mentions the horn. In the heat of displeasure, he has cut off every horn, every leader. Remember that we see the 10 horns in the book of Daniel. The 10 horns of the beast, which are the 10 toes of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw. The 10 horns of the beast of Revelation, which are 10 leaders. And from those, one little horn will come out, and that will be the beast. In the heat of displeasure, he has cut off every horn of Israel. He has withdrawn his right hand from before the enemy. He has withdrawn with his right hand from before the enemy. So he has withdrawn his right hand from before the enemy, and he burns against Jacob like a flaming fire, consuming all around. You see how well it mentions Israel, Jacob. As in this case, for instance, in which we see negative, well, so it was negative as well here. But my point here was how Israel was connected to that which is up high and that which is beautiful, and Yaakov to the tribulation, pretty much. Here, we see something similar in the sense that the horn meaning leadership as in the name Israel, which means he who will rule like the mighty one. So that's why the horn connected with the name Israel, for the name Israel represents ruling. And he burns against Yaakov like a flaming fire. Once again, obviously the tribulation, like I said, but also remember that just like Mashiach came as the water of life, the last will come like a consuming fire. And he comes to fight, spiritually speaking, with those who reject the true doctrine, the true Messiah. So he will burn against the many, just like Mashiach came for his people and his people rejected him. Now he has to come and fight his people. Obviously, not those who accept him. And he burns against Jacob like a flaming fire, consuming all around. Then it says, he has bent his bow like an enemy. You see what I just mentioned? This is a very interesting, important verse, because he comes like a thief in the night. So he comes like a Gentile. We see Isaiah 65. He won't be genetically a Gentile, but because of the way things are nowadays, which everything is confused, they call evil good and good evil, as Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 says. Those who claim they are Yahudim, those who say they are Jews but are not, but instead they are the synagogue of Satan. So those who claim to be the true Israel, they are not. And many who are seen as Gentiles are actually true Israelites. So the last is an Israelite, but comes from the nations, so he will be seen as a Gentile. So like a thief in the night, like a Gentile, as if he was a Roman. Daniel 9, as if he was from Edom. Isaiah 65. 63. So he came to his people, the first coming. They rejected him. So now he comes as an enemy of the people. And I repeat, not the people who accepted him, but the people who claim to be believers, the people who claim to love him, revere him, and all of that, yet are willing and ready to kill him again. This time as the last, of course. So look how it says not only that he comes like an enemy, because they will say he's a false prophet, a false Messiah, and therefore an adversary, meaning a Satan. But they even say that already through the false doctrines which they believe. Because if we go to Revelation 6, we see the first seal, which is the beginning of the last 7 years, the week of Daniel. And I saw the Lamb open one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, meaning the voice of Yahweh, sound of thunder, which it doesn't happen in the next seals. Come and see. And I looked and saw a white horse. White is positive, spiritually speaking, symbolically speaking. Horse represents war. So on a spiritual war, I looked and I saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow. He who sat on it holding a bow. Here we see that Yahweh, he has bent his bow like an enemy. So it is Yahweh. That's why he comes on a white horse, just like he does on Revelation 19, where he clearly says it is the Messiah. But many Christians here say this is the Antichrist. Why? There's no reason to believe that. Obviously, they take certain verses out of context and claim it and continue to believe it. But it should be clear if you read carefully and interpret scriptures according to what scriptures say, that this is a positive seal. This and the 5th are both positive. The rest are plagues. So, and I looked and saw a white horse, and he was out on holding a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out overcoming and to overcome. So he is the one who overcomes. As Revelation 2 and Revelation 3, Yahushua says, to him who overcomes, I shall give the morning star. To him who overcomes, I shall give a new name. To him who overcomes this and that. So he is the one who overcomes. If this was the Antichrist, as they say, then it is over. According to scriptures, he is going to win. That should make people realize that that doctrine is wrong. Because the scripture is saying that he is going to triumph. How is that possible if that's supposed to be the Antichrist? So going back, he has bent his bow like an enemy. He has set his right hand like an adversary, confirming it. Remember that Yahushua is the arm. The last is the hand. Arm and hand become one, or are one. The arm in order to reach us through the forgiveness of sins and to give us the strength, for we can do all things through Mashiach who strengthens us. And then the hand to finish the job pretty much when it comes to the prophecies, to manifest his perfect will at the end of times, meaning Shalom, the real Shabbat, his goodness, his revelation, and also to punish the enemy, as well as obviously to give salvation and everything that the hand represents. Just like the hand has 5 fingers and there are 5 books in the Torah, and the last, who is the hand, is the witness like Moshe. So his right hand like an adversary. That's verse 4. Here he says, that's interesting. When he says he has bent his bow, this is his bow, kashto, kaoyep or keoyep, that would be like an enemy, which is very close to the name Yob, and there is a connection between the two, but my point here was that this is saying darach, when it comes to, he has bent, darach, and darach, that same word could be pronounced derech, which means the way or way. So it is through the bow that he shows the derech, the way, because that is the point of it, to throw the instruction. Remember that Torah actually comes from a verb that means to throw, as in throwing an arrow. And sinning is to miss the mark, as in missing the target. So that's why it's mentioned in here, the bow and the way. But using this word, which would be a noun now as a verb, referring to how the bow works, meaning bending the bow in order for the teaching represented by the arrow to reach whoever needs to hear it or be pretty much destroyed, for it is a war, what it is referring to, spiritual war. Then, all right, sad. All right, that's the word I wanted to see. So continuing, he has bent his bow like an enemy, he has set his right hand like an adversary, and he kills all who delighted the eye. And he kills all who delighted the eye. Look also how it mentions the eye, not the eyes. Let me just make sure that it is eye in singular. Well, here I found that interesting as well. Ketzar, that's when it's saying like an adversary. Ketzar. This tsar, we could say, is the root of the word sor or tsur, which is tire, meaning tsur is the real name of the place now known as Tyre. And we just read in Ezekiel 28, when Yahweh was speaking to Lucifer, to Satan, he was doing it through the prophet who went to speak to the king of Sur, the king of Tyre. My point is that he's mentioning like an adversary, like a Satan, just like Satan is represented by Sur, that name in Ezekiel 28. My point is that they will see the last as the enemy, and they will see the enemy as the savior, sadly. And when I say they, I mean those who will be condemned. So he has bent his bow like an enemy, he has set his right hand like an adversary, and he kills all who delighted the eye. And he kills all, who delighted the eye. Ain, right here, in singular. And I find it interesting for a couple of things. One, because they delighted Lucifer, who is called the all-seeing eye. Even back in the day, they will say, call Ain, the eye that sees all. But the Yahudim would call it Kotz, referring to a thorn, pretty much, which instead of using the word kol, they would use the word Kotz, as saying that a thorn should go into that eye. And that is why they used a crown of thorns to put on Mashiach's head, as claiming that he didn't come from Yahweh, but from the enemy. That's what one of the things they were trying to say, other than mocking him and everything else. So, who delighted the eye? Also, remember that we have these two physical eyes, or the eyes to see that which is physical, and there is one eye which helps to see that which is beyond. And pretty much the world has that eye also focused on that which is physical, material. And that's why the world is lost pretty much, because they have not seek Yahweh, the true creator. So, and he kills all who delighted the eye, those who delighted the enemy, those who delighted the pleasures of the flesh, pretty much using the strength and things that Yahweh would give them in order to seek him. They use them to seek the enemy, the eye, pleasure of the flesh, money, fame, power. In the tent of the daughter of Sion, he has poured out his wrath like fire. Yahweh has been like an enemy. Once again, this is so important because people do. Once again, I don't say it in any mean way. It's just, it is what it is, and it's sad, and it is obvious. I think it is to you as well, at least when you get to think it. People don't understand that, well, and obviously there are different types of beliefs, but Christians, they focus so much on his favor, and they don't even call it favor, but grace. And they forget everything about justice, about judgment, so much so that they made up the doctrine of the rapture so that they don't have to see any judgment or any punishment. There are others who cannot understand his mercy, for instance, through Mashiach, like the Jewish people, through Yahushua, and they are trying to save themselves through their own physical actions, which can do nothing for the spirit and the soul. But they both think of the Elohim whom they worship as good. But we know only Yahweh is good. And because he is good, he needs to judge, show mercy to those who deserve it according to their repentance and believe in Mashiach, and punish those who reject all truth, all mercy, all love. And since the whole world, remember also that scripture says that whoever becomes a friend of the world becomes an enemy of Yahweh. So if someone becomes a part of the world, he is an enemy of Yahweh. Therefore, when Yahweh comes to the world will see him as an enemy. And what I'm saying is that the world in general, they know so little about the true creator that they wouldn't just like they didn't recognize him even if he was right in front of them, because they have delighted the eye, not the spirit, not the heart, not the truth, but the eye. So they say seeing is believing. So they judge through appearances, and that's one of the reasons also why they kill Mashiach. So they think that Yahweh is so good. Well, I should say different. They think that their God is, as they would say, good, even though that is not understood either. That he won't ever punish nobody. He won't come here to destroy nobody. Or only those who you don't like. Because everything is judged according to their desires, their eye, their wants, and everything else like that. So I don't think have the ability to understand this verse right here, and many others that we already mentioned, that the Creator himself would come like an enemy of the people. Because the people, they all say, oh, we are all God's children, right? They say that. Oh, no, but grace, and he is that. And they cannot understand him as a judge. Even though they say it and they claim to believe it, when it comes to this type of verses, I think there will be a lot of confusion in most people's heads. And that's why I repeat, some people dare to say that the Elohim of the Old Testament is a different one than that of the New Testament. That the Elohim of the Old Testament was mean and evil, and that the Messiah came to speak of another one. But that is not true at all. They just don't want the judgment. They don't want Yahweh. They want the fruit, but they don't want the tree. They want the favor that comes from Mashiach, but they don't want the judgment that can come if you do not respect Mashiach. So Yahweh has been like an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all her palaces. He has destroyed her strongholds. And he increases mourning and lamentation in the daughter of Yehudah. This is interesting. Look how it mentions he swallowed up Israel. But then he says the daughter of Yehudah. As if Israel is the daughter of Yehudah, right? Who is being punished. We know Yehudah is a tribe, Israel, the 12 tribes, but we know Israel separated in two, and that other part was called Yehudah. And that is the spot where Jerusalem was and the kings were. So Yehudah is above Israel, and also when it comes to what it represents, for once again, when we have Israel and Yehudah, one next to the other, Israel represents the many, Yehudah the few. For the Israel were 10 tribes, Yehudah a couple. So once again, here we see what I mentioned from Revelation chapter 12, when it says at the very end, and the dragon was enraged with the woman. What woman? Yehudah. And he went to fight. When I say Yehudah, I mean the chosen few. And the dragon was enraged with the chosen few, the woman, Yehudah. And he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, as in the daughter of the woman, the daughter of Yehudah, those guarding the commands of Elohim and possessing the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach. So doesn't mention those who have the word, because those who have the word are those who accept the name and have the seal on the foreheads, and those are the woman. But those who only have the witness, meaning they believe that Mashiach came and they fulfill the commandments, loving their neighbor as themselves, they will have to go through the great tribulation when the dragon will go after them for not being able to catch the woman. So he has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all her palaces. He has destroyed her strongholds, and he increases mourning and lamentation in the daughter of Yehudah, as in the seed of the woman, the rest of the seed of the woman. He has demolished his booth like a garden. Verse 6. He has demolished his booth like a garden. He has destroyed his place of meeting. Right? For Yahweh destroyed the temple. And because of the sins of the people, of course, he has demolished his booth like a garden. He has destroyed his place of meeting. Yahweh has made the appointed times. So the Moedim, Yahweh has made the appointed times and Shabbatot to be forgotten in Sion. This is amazing. That's why they follow a wrong calendar, the lunar calendar. In fact, we are reading that on Shabbat, right? Everything that has to do with the calendar. And we have seen over and over again that the Jewish calendar is wrong. The Jewish people are following a very wrong calendar, which makes them not know really when the true Moedim are, the true feasts. Why? Because Yahweh has made the feasts, the appointed times, and the Shabbatot to be forgotten in Sion. They begin the Shabbat on Friday, and despises sovereign and priest and his raging displeasure, in his raging displeasure. So the sovereigns and the priests that now rule in Israel, many of those priests claim to come from Levi, right? From Levi, the tribe. And many of them are already practicing for the third temple to be built and for them to do all the sacrifices once again. They all believe to be closer to the Most High than anybody else. And many Christians believe that as well. But what does Yahweh say? And despises sovereign and priest in his raging displeasure. Yahweh has cast off his slaughter place. They made a new slaughter place, a little bit far from Jerusalem. Once again, I repeat, to practice, but it is pretty much a copy of the one in the temple. Yahweh has cast off his slaughter place. He has rejected his set apart place. He has rejected his set apart place. He destroyed the temple because his true temple is Yahushua HaMashiach. He said, destroy the temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. He has delivered the walls of her palaces into the hand of the enemy. They have made a noise in the house of Yahweh as on the day of an appointed time. He has delivered the walls of her palaces into the hand of the enemy. They have made a noise in the house of Yahweh, right, the temple, as on the day of an appointed time. So normally on the appointed times, the feasts, there will be a lot of noise in the temple because everybody will go to the temple. But this time, because of the war, they made a similar noise, but to bring destruction. They have made a noise in the house of Yahweh as on the day of the unappointed time. This, in fact, as I mentioned, Yahweh is the one speaking these words, pretty much singing these words of lamentation. Right now, we are on the 4th month, right, that of Cancer. We are on the 14th of the 4th month. In 3 days, we have a fast because of that is the day when the congregation decided to worship the golden calf. But if we go back to the 9th, which is the 100th day of the month of the year, the 9th of the 4th month, we have here on Reuben, which is the 4th, that the 9th has 2 Kings. Well, there's another copy of the calendar on another page, but this is the one that I almost automatically go to all the time, in which the calendar has this in English. Whatever you may see different because it's in Spanish, but you see 2 Kings 25:3, Jeremiah 39:2, and Jeremiah 52:6. So Jeremiah speaks of the time when Nebuchadnezzar with Babylon entered Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and took everything to Babel. And it lasted that exile for 70 years until Daniel came, and then the Persian Empire destroyed Babel. And I say Daniel because of what we read in Daniel. So my point is that we are here on the 14th. And this that we are just reading in Lamentations happened last week. In fact, last week we started reading Lamentations, right? How interesting that last week is when this happened in time, back in the day. So on the 9th, this started and it went through all the way to this week. So they destroyed that temple. And then that also connects spiritually or prophetically to the destruction of the second temple. And as we know, we need 2 witnesses for everything. at least 2 witnesses. So that's why Yahweh destroyed 2 temples to reveal that Mashiach, the temple, would be killed. And not only that, first and last. Mashiach, Yahushua, represents the, well, there are several ways in which we can see this. Remember, what one fulfills spiritually, the other one literally. So, and vice versa. So, you know that the temple that Shlomo built in appearances was amazing compared to the second temple. The presence of Yahweh was in both temples, but the appearance was not the same. In the second temple was a more humble temple, and it didn't have the Ark of the Covenant. Yahushua came as the priest, not as the king, not yet. That's why the Ark of the Covenant was not in the temple when Mashiach Yahushua came. And we know, according to Isaiah, that Yahushua in appearances didn't look that good, and it was on purpose so that people wouldn't follow because of appearances. He didn't have beauty when it comes to the physical, like the second temple. The last comes as the king, who is represented by the ark. And that's why Shlomo, the branch of David, genetically speaking, was the one who built the temple, just like Zerubbabel prophetically was told to build the temple, representing the last who comes to build 144,000 as the temple for the presence of Yahweh to dwell within it, being himself the Ark of the Covenant. And that's why when the 2 witnesses die and they go up, it says that the ark is seen in the temple, because now the first and last are one. The temple and ark become one. So now the temple is like the temple of Shlomo, where there was a temple and an ark, and so much splendor. So when the first and the last become one, it's like the ark entering the temple. So all of that also to mention that just like Mashiach was killed on an appointed time, so will the 2 witnesses be killed on an appointed time. They have made a noise in the house of Yahweh as on the day of an appointed time. Yahweh has planned to destroy the wall of the daughter of Zion. He has stretched out a line. This is interesting for many reasons. This is like referring a line of destruction, like to bring destruction. But to stretch out a line can be interpreted in many ways, like judging, measuring, right? To judge, or measuring representing judgment. Also, like when you put a line and you say, don't cross that line, and you know how the world likes to cross the line. And he stretched out the line already to Mashiach, and most of the world has crossed the line regarding their belief and their actions. Yahweh has planned to destroy the wall of the daughter of Zion. He has stretched out a line. Remember how I have shown in the past the simplest way to think of the creation of all things through a point, a line, and a circle. So the point representing Yahweh, the image of the point representing the Ruach, the union of those 2 points, which would be a line representing the Messiah, the Son, and then being Yahweh, he who is unmovable, the center of all, and the Ruach, that which moves to and fro, as we see in Genesis. Then once the Ruach moves, that would make a circle, thanks to the word, which is the line, like the Vav in the name Yahweh. So the Yud is the point, the Hey, the 2 points, the Vav is the line, and the circle, the last Hey, thanks to the 2 points being united and one of them moving. So Yahushua is the line. He is the Vav. And we see here he has stretched out a line. That's why he did it in the middle of history. We will enter eternity in the 8th millennium. So Mashiach came on the 4th millennium to put a line and separate time itself. For you, we talk about, even though it is all wrong, but before Mashiach, after Mashiach, right? When it comes to time. So he has stretched out a line. He has not turned back his hand from destroying. And he has made the rampart and wall to lament. Together they have languished. Her gates have sunk into the ground. Her gates have sunk into the ground. He has destroyed and broken her bars. Her sovereign and her rulers are among the nations. The Torah is no more. This is interesting because the Torah is eternal. But here it says it's no more. Obviously, it's referring to the fact that people don't believe in it. They don't read it. They don't fulfill it. They don't understand it most of the time, even when they read it. The Torah is no more. And her prophets have found no vision from Yahweh. Even though they have the gift of prophecy, they receive no vision because of the times, because of the lack of faith, because of the wickedness, which makes the prophet not being able to see. The elders of the daughter of Zion sit on the ground, are silent. They have thrown dust on their heads. They have girded themselves with sackcloth. The maidens of Jerusalem have left their heads hang to the ground. My eyes are spent with tears. My eyes are spent with tears. It said that tears hurt the eyes, like crying too much. In fact, when it comes to the anatomy of the soul, the book I am reading, talks about how some of the toxins of the body are expelled pretty much through sweat and tears. So that would be one of the reasons why crying too much could hurt the eyes. That is why we see regarding Leah that she had weak eyes because she was crying too much because she thought that her husband was going to be Esau. So my eyes are spent with tears. My inward parts ferment. My bile has been poured on the ground because of the destruction of the daughter of my people, as children and the infants languish in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, and this is amazingly sad, of course, and may Yahweh have mercy on as many people as possible, but this will have to be fulfilled. And again, because this was fulfilled back in the day in a way, and now it will be fulfilled once again. They say to their mothers, where is grain and wine? As they languish like the wounded in the streets of the city, as their life is poured out in their mother's bosom. How shall I admonish you? To what shall I compare you, O daughter of Jerusalem? To what shall I liken you to comfort you, O maiden daughter of Zion? For your breach is as great as the sea. Who shall heal you? Your breach is as great as the sea. Who shall heal you? Who shall heal you? It says, Yirfa lach. Well, this is the who, me, right? But Yirfa, I mentioned it just because this would be Rapha, as in Yahweh Rapha is the only one who can heal. In the same question, who shall heal you? We see the Rapha from Yahweh Rapha. Because great as the sea is the break or the breach, who shall heal you? Remember that the sea, it represents the nations. And the people of Israel, sadly, were not only dispersed amongst the nations, but they became like the nations. So their breach became too great. Then it says, your prophets have seen falsehood and folly for you. The prophets have seen falsehood. There are some false prophets who claim to see things and tell people supposed prophecies, deceiving them. There are other prophets who do have the gift, but since they are wicked, what they receive are visions to deceive, for themselves to be deceived and those who follow them. So your prophets have seen falsehood and folly for you and have not shown you your crookedness. This is what we see nowadays in a lot of Christian churches. People who claim to be prophets, and all they do is mention good things, things that will make people feel good, people that things that people expect, hope, desire, but they never mention their crookedness. They never mention what they need to change, what needs to be done. And not that he would have to, not necessarily, because sometimes it will be needed, but not necessarily for him, for a prophet to go and be personally saying, okay, your problem is lust. You should be careful about that. And you should stop lying and you should stop adultery and all of that, right? Not directly to a shame, but to bring righteousness. So talk about what sin is and does so that people who hear may reject it and know what to reject and when and how and why, which is very important. If people don't know the why, they won't care about the rest. In the sense that one thing is, for instance, just to know through experience than to know just because somebody told you, right? So like I always mention, if you tell a child not to touch the fire because it burns, the child knows, but he doesn't know. And that's why he will want to touch it still, and even more because there's something that he doesn't know, yet he knows. So he will want to experience it, and then when he experiences it, he will now know. And it is similar to what Job went through. He thought he knew Yahweh, but he was, after going through all that pain, that he realized that he didn't know him, but he did now. So affliction is one of the greatest tools, and it is sad, literally, but it is one of the best tools to bring us to repentance and to change and to understanding. And hopefully Yahweh gives us wisdom so that we don't have to go through much pain anymore in order to understand things that we still need to understand. Hopefully, just because of the fact that we understand that affliction is useful, so hopefully we won't need it, for we already know it. Like I mentioned regarding the fire, right? So your prophets have seen falsehood and folly for you and have not shown you your crookedness, to turn back your captivity. So if they would have changed, if the prophets would have said, you're doing wrong, you need to do this and like that, and like this, and then the 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 people would have changed, and then they would have received salvation from that captivity. They would have been saved from Babylon beforehand. And I have not shown you your crookedness, to turn back your captivity, but their visions for you are false and misleading messages. All who pass by have clapped their hands at you. They have whistled and they shake their heads at the daughter of Jerusalem. Is this the city that is called the perfection of loveliness, the joy of all the earth? Remember, as we were just seeing a while ago at the beginning in Isaiah, here's another connection. Those who see you stare at you and ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook rains, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities? who would not open the house of his prisoners? Just like once Satan falls to the earth and then to hell, people will see him and say, so all that fear, it was because of you. You being so little unimportant are the one who caused so much trouble. Just like they will, and also not only that, but you have been thrown from your burial site like an abominable branch, like the garment of those who are killed, thrust through with a sword, who go down to the stones of the pit like a trampled corpse. So after being the most beautiful and wonderful malach, became an abominable branch, a trampled corpse, and several other things that are mentioned about him, because he is horrendous, pretty much spiritually. So complete opposite of what it was. The same thing happens with Jerusalem here. All who pass by have clapped their hands at you. They have whistled and they shake their heads at the daughter of Jerusalem. Is this the city that is called the perfection of loveliness, the joy of all the earth? And I'm making all of these connections because there is a clear connection between the letter, the flesh, earthly Jerusalem, and Satan. And when I say Satan, this time I mean Hallel, Lucifer. That's why, and also I should say, okay, I'll say it again. Hallel, who is called that also Ben Shachar, Hallel Ben Shachar, son of the morning, is connected therefore to the sun of this reality that goes down every afternoon to show us that the Satan, Hallel, will fall at the end of history. So Hallel connected to the sun, connected to the earthly Jerusalem, connected to the letter and the flesh. That's why Yahweh needs to make a, we could say a new sun, or give the sun to a different malach. And that's why the sun will shine forever, 7 times greater than it does now, and will not set ever again. That is the son of righteousness. That's why Yahweh said, he who overcomes, I will give him the morning star. And we just saw who is the one who overcomes in the first seal, which was mentioned in this lamentation when it said that he takes the bow like an enemy. So the son of righteousness connected, well, I should say the son of the eternal reality connected to the last, who is called the son of righteousness in Malachi 4:2, who brings the doctrine not of the letter but of the spirit, who fulfills the Torah according to the spirit, not according to the flesh, and who brings the new Jerusalem from the heavens. So everything that I mentioned first, having to do with this reality, with the Israel of the flesh, with those who only understand or see the letter and do not understand the spirit within it. And therefore the Jerusalem is connected with all that negativity, and that's why it had to go down and still will be destroyed. We need to pray for Jerusalem, as in the sense that that is the place that Yahweh chose to put the new Jerusalem eventually. And also because of the people of Israel who may still be there, or wherever they may be, they still the people of Yahweh. So all your enemies have opened their mouth against you. They have whistled and they gnashed their teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. This is important because we were reading that Yahweh swallows her up. And he mentioned it several times. Yahweh, without mercy, without compassion. So Yahweh has swallowed up without compassion, right? He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all her palaces. And now they are saying, we have swallowed up, because Yahweh will allow the enemy to destroy. The enemy cannot do anything without Yahweh allowing it. And the only reason why he would allow it is because it is deserved. It is justice. But the point is that not only he allows the enemy to do it, the fact that the enemy doesn't understand that makes him deceive himself to think that he has power over the people of Yahweh. So he becomes proud, and that pride becomes its fault. So the enemy that Yahweh will allow to destroy the many will eventually be destroyed as well because of its pride. They don't understand that it is Yahweh working through them. So they have whistled and they gnash their teeth. They say, "We have swallowed her up." This is certainly the day we waited for. We have found it. We have seen it. Like many of the leaders of the world are saying now, with the Great Reset and the 2030 agenda and all of that, they are saying this is certainly the day we waited for. And once they get Jerusalem, well, they already have it, but when they set it up in every sense for the New World Order with a temple and all of that, then they will say this even more. This is certainly the day we waited for. We have found it. We have seen it. So Yahweh will allow them to think that they have won for 1,290 days, which is the time that the abomination of desolation will last, as we see in the book of Daniel. Yahweh has done what he planned. He has filled his word, which he commanded in the days of old. He has torn down without compassion, and he has let your enemy rejoice over you. He has exalted the horn of your adversaries. In the book of Micah, he says that he will exalt the horn of Jerusalem in the end times. That is the last, the branch of David. But he will allow the horn of the adversary to be exalted. And that is, as we know, when it comes to the prophetical, our time, in the book of Daniel, the little horn. Their heart cried out to Yahweh, O wall of the daughter of Zion. Let tears run down like a river day and night. Give yourself no numbness. Let your eyes have no rest. Arise, cry out in the night at the beginning of the watches. Pour out your heart like water before the face of Yahweh. Lift your hands toward him for the life of your young children who languish from hunger at the head of every street. As we know, the third seal of Revelation will be hunger in the whole world. Then it says, see, O Yahweh, and look attentively. To whom have you done thus? Should the women eat their offspring? Infants of a hand breadth? So it got to the point when they started eating their own children. And sadly, it is also prophesied to happen in the end times. Should the women eat their offspring? Infants of a hand breadth? Should the priest and prophet be killed in the set apart place of Yahweh? Should the priest and the prophet, obviously in general, is pretty much saying, should they be so disrespectful and rebellious that they would dare to kill the priest in the temple itself? Or has the evil come to a point when that is what they deserve? But also we can see this as, should Eliyahu and the witness like Moshe be killed in the set apart place of Yahweh? Right, the two witnesses, because remember, Yahushua is the high priest, Eliyahu will be the priest, and the prophet will be the king in the middle, and they will be killed very close to the temple. And since the temple most likely will be built in a different place where it was originally, who knows, they may be killed in the place of the temple. which we'll have to see in very short amount of time. Young and old lie on the ground in the streets. My maidens and my young men have fallen by the sword. You have killed them in the day of your displeasure. You have slaughtered without compassion. Would you proclaim as in a day of appointed time the fears that surround me? And no one escaped or survived in the day of the displeasure of Yahweh. Those whom I have nursed and brought up, my enemy has destroyed. Those whom I have nursed and brought up, my enemy has destroyed. And that's how the chapter ends.